Welcome to Baddie to Baddie, a monthly podcast by For the Breast of Us, the first breast cancer community for all women of color, where we share real-life experiences, information, and education to help you live your best life after a breast cancer diagnosis.
Hey, everybody. It's your girl, Miss Eboney, a.k.a. Miss Hustle and Hills, better known as Baddie Hustle. And I am here with another episode of Love and Cancer. It's a series by For the Breast of Us, a breast cancer community of women of color. I am proud to be a part of that beautiful group. And we are here discussing the relationship between a breast cancer survivor and their friends and family. And if you all have been a part of this community, you know how big love, friendship, and most of all, support is. And so today we have a beautiful guest. She goes by the name of Morgan. I am about to bring her on, and she's going to tell you more about herself, and she is going to introduce her lovely and wonderful support team. You guys help me welcome Morgan. Hi, Morgan. How are you?
I'm well, Ebony. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for joining Love and Cancer today. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your story, Morgan.
My story is pretty interesting. It started in June of 2020. It was during COVID. Everybody was on lockdown. It was the beginning of the pandemic. And I just happened to brush across my breast and feel something odd, like a mass, but I just shrugged it off. And then the next day, I just happened to feel it again. I went into my mom's room, asked her to feel it, and she said, yeah, there's something there. Make an appointment with your OBGYN, which I did, who is a Black woman. When I went in to see her, she said, yes, definitely there is a mass there. She said it's probably a cyst due to your age, lack of family history. She was like, these are very common. I've had 3 in my lifetime. Yeah, it shouldn't be anything to be worried about. And she referred me to her breast surgeon, the person who, obviously removed her 3 cysts. I went in to see her. And she's like, well, we're going to biopsy everything, biopsy anyways. And 5 days later over Zoom, she informed me that I had either stage 2, most likely stage 2 breast cancer. And I was in shock. I was in complete shock. It was definitely not expected. I was 34 years old at the time. So I hadn't even started self-exams. It was completely shocking. And again, this is during the time of a pandemic. We are dealing with COVID before vaccines. So it was completely terrifying for me. I never left my house except to go to treatment. I immediately started on chemo. I went through 6 months of chemo. I did a lumpectomy. So I had the mass and some surrounding areas removed. It had spread to 3 of my lymph nodes. Those were also removed. I did.
Oh, are you frozen? Oh, where it looks like we're a little froze.
Oral drugs for the next 5 years at least.
Wow. That is a story. That is a story.
Actually, let me add, I forgot to add this, Ebony. So I was already getting my PhD in biochemistry. So I graduated with my PhD in biochemistry in August 2020, the same month that I got diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow.
During a
that
pandemic.
is huge. Okay.
Yeah.
So, who was the first person you told this news to?
The first person I told it to was my mom. She was in the next room. I actually thought that she had overheard me,
Mm-hmm.
but she hadn't. I told her that again. She was in shock. She was like, "Are you serious?" It's like, "Yeah." And then she told me, you need to tell your brother. So I called him, and told him. Now this was again, it's during COVID. He had just moved back from DC, so he was quarantining himself for 6 weeks. Um, so
Oh
I
wow.
told him that again, complete shock. He was like,
So,
Morgan, I don't really know what to say. I mean, there's no words really that you can
well,
say.
I know you yeah. Well, I know we have mom and brother, so let's bring them in, okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Hello, you guys.
Hey
Hello.
everybody.
So, Morgan it was telling us about how she found out. And we're at the part of her story where she says she calls and she tells mom first. So, mom, how do you feel when you tell your daughter comes and tells you she has breast cancer? Like, what was your initial reaction?
Of course, it was shock, but I immediately said, well, we'll just have to deal with it. It was nothing else I could say. We were going to deal with it together, head on. And by the end of the day, I was even making jokes. I told her after surgery, you could ask for some triple D's. And we,
She said if you get triple D's, you'll always have a job and a man.
I love that.
so
Oh, that is a good one.
that was the way we approached it. If we weren't sad, feeling sorry for ourselves. She just had to go through it, and I would be right there with her and take her to and from.
I love that. And she told us that the next person she told is you, brother Marcus. What was your reaction as a brother? Your sister telling you this news.
Well, I like to think of myself as kind of the calm, stable one in the family a bit. So I knew my job was not to overreact and to play it cool and make sure,
Right.
everything's under control and everything's okay. But it definitely is very shocking. Different members of our family have all gone through different health issues. So like this wasn't completely new territory, but it definitely was very shocking. And, interestingly enough, I had just moved back to Houston, like maybe that same week, or it was something like crazy close. And I was diagnosed with COVID because my mother being high risk, when I traveled
Mm-hmm.
back to Houston, first thing I wanted to do was go get a test. So it took me a
Right.
day or two to get my test results back. I tested positive. So I couldn't even come home.
Oh
So
wow.
I'm quarantining at a friend's house across town, sleeping on his couch because he had it earlier and was feeling safe about it. And so when I got that call, it was kind of like a feeling of helplessness because I knew I couldn't come home and hug my two girls, but I just knew my job was
Right.
to stay solid, stay calm, and tell her everything's going to be okay, and we'll take it one step at a time.
I love that. I love that. Okay, what were I know I can speak from a mom's perspective because I'm the mom. I was the mom telling the daughter. But what were some of the more difficult times that you all faced while being a support system for Morgan?
I don't think there was anything difficult. Just dealing with her pain
Yeah.
sometimes, and I know there was nothing I could do do. She had neuropathy really bad in her hands and feet, and she would wake up in the middle of the night screaming and crying. We had gotten these ice shoes that I would run and get, and she would change out. But there was really that we could do for the pain. Even the doctor said that there was really nothing. They could just give her like Tylenol 3 or something, but the pain was extreme. So that was the difficult thing, knowing that I was helpless and couldn't help her.
Yeah, I think the helplessness and then the kind of the waiting game, like there's constantly a new test and a new result and a new and kind of just like not knowing for so long and not knowing where the stage was and not knowing, is she cancer free or if it's working or what the next step was, because the original plan that was laid out starts getting modified as you go, and it's kind of like, all right, how close are we to the end? And I think just not knowing was a tough part for me.
And so how much did you all know about breast cancer prior to, and Morgan, you can even jump in on this one. Like, how much did you all know about breast cancer before Morgan's diagnosis?
Well, I knew quite a bit. Their grandmother, my husband's mother, had died from breast cancer in 2004. She was diagnosed probably a month or two before Marcus was born. So she lived for quite a few years, 12 or 13 years. So yes, I knew about breast cancer. And then after she died in 2004, her eldest daughter was diagnosed with breast cancer probably 3 years later. So I knew quite a bit just from hearing about it. And of course, you could go and research. Just knew that it was chemo and radiation and surgery, and it's a tough road.
Yeah, and I think I know for me, again, it's complete shock, and I was still under the impression like I'm too young for this. I'm still thinking of breast cancer as an old woman's disease, like grandmother, older people. I mean, it wasn't on the radar at all, and also. And this is something that we have to get away from. But when you think of breast cancer history, you automatically go to your maternal side of the family. You're not even thinking about your paternal side. And so that's part of it too. So we knew about breast cancer, but we didn't know, the different types of breast cancer, um, you know, different things in terms of like the size and like, where it spreads to and things of that. So yeah, it was a learning curve for all of us.
What's interesting is that when Morgan was diagnosed, I immediately figured that she had inherited it from her grandmother. But it turns out the type of breast cancer that she has was not hereditary.
Oh, wow.
And actually something that I learned, and again, I'm learning too, and I'm a scientist, and I'm learning all these things that I've never heard of. But most people who get breast cancer do not have a family history, which I was shocked to learn that, because that goes against what we've heard, what I've been taught. Most people who get breast cancer find their own lump in between mammograms. This is important. People need to know this, right? Because once you start, divulging these statistics, people need to understand that they have a lot more power and control, and they need to be more aware and conscious of these types of things. And ultimately, I mean, that's how we're going to save our community, right? I mean, it starts with awareness, but even before that, like, let's just have a conversation about it. Let's just talk about it. And so I'm just so thankful that we're doing that right now. So
Exactly. And I wholeheartedly agree. Excuse me. Being someone who was diagnosed under the age of 40, I was originally diagnosed at 37, but found my lump when I was like 34, 35, and I was actually misdiagnosed.
wow.
No,
Wow.
no previous family history on my mother's side or my father's side. So I was the first.
Hmm.
And just like your Dr. Morgan, oh, you're too young. It's this, it's that. And I got diagnosed way later than what I was actually supposed to. So, like going through this, because as we know, breast cancer and just the chemo part of it can be a journey, and also the aftermath of it. How, like, where did you all get your support from? Like, where did you get your inspiration from to just be like, even through the hard times, through those concerning times, and even those unknowing times, where did you all draw your strength from?
Yeah, I
Prayer.
know for me, definitely God. I did a lot of prayer, a
Yeah.
lot of talking to God, and really my community showed up and showed out. I mean, people who I hadn't seen or talked to in years showed up at my doorstep with something. They were cooking meals. I had tons and tons of socks. And listen, when I tell you I wore every single pair of socks, I had like 10 blankets. I used all 10 blankets. Chapstick. I used all of it. I mean, all of it was so helpful. And literally, I was in everybody's prayers and thoughts, and was, what do you need? What can I do? So yeah, forever grateful on that.
Yeah.
Amen.
For me,
And
it was
as
well and support. Friends bought dinner, gift cards. We still have some gift cards we haven't used. We got those. Uh, she got flowers every 2 weeks for about 6 months from different people. It wasn't coordinated or anything. It just worked out that way. It was just beautiful, the support that we got. But, and again, it was COVID, so I wasn't letting anybody in the house.
I
But,
know that's right, Mama.
but they would drop everything off at the front door. And it just was amazing, the support that we got from everyone.
That's a
Yeah, and
beautiful
let me just
thing.
say, like, you're looking at my whole entire support system right there, and you know how they said, they were level-headed, they weren't freaking out, they weren't overreacting, and that really helped me. Um, and it was just more so, okay, well, we just got to do what needs to get done. So.
Amen. All right, what is if you have any advice for people who are in a support role? Because some people, they don't know how to support somebody that's going through that. What would your advice be to somebody who is playing that support role for somebody?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, right? And I don't know if we really give enough praise and enough resources to the people who are taking care of us, right? So much of the focus is on the patient, right? But
Right,
I mean, my family, my mom, my brother were right there with me through everything. And that emotional toll is very heavy, right? Because they have to control their emotions, not only for themselves, but for me, right? And so
right,
they kind of have to play a dual role because they have to be strong, right? For me. And one thing I will say is that, my brother took me to a lot of the initial doctor's appointments. And, obviously I'm a doctor, but when you're sitting there as a patient being told that you have cancer, I was there physically, but mentally, I can't even remember anything that was talked about, right? Because you're literally in shock. So just having another person with you And having that person, take notes, having questions before you even get to the doctor's office, having them written down. And we would ask other people and other family members, okay, what questions do you have, and kind of consolidate it into a list. And I think that's really important.
Speaking, here's another member of our support system right here.
Oh,
Mortimer. Yes,
Morty.
he is right there with me. When I first got chemo, my first time, he never left my side for it was like 20 hours. He was right there up under me.
it reminds me of my Zoe. I have a Shih Tzu, and I found out in the hospital. And when I came home, everywhere I went, she went, and she's still like that to this day.
Yeah, they know.
She's at the door now, like scratching.
Yeah,
she's like, let me in.
And scientific fact, I got to put some science in here somewhere. Dogs can scientifically smell cancer in a person before it is detected. Interesting, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Too bad they can't talk.
Yeah, no, they can't talk. They'll just whine and ask for some biscuits, maybe, but but yeah.
And as a support team, where did you all? I know you all. What are some things that you ask the doctors, questions that you asked the doctors during that time that maybe Morgan didn't get a chance to or even thought about?
That was him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an engineer, so I'm a scientist too by nature. So I'm gonna break down every little thing. I don't, break it down to me like I can understand it. Don't talk to me like I'm dumb. I want to know what's going on.
Right.
So I mean, I would just ask very specific questions. Like I never let the doctor gloss over anything that I did not fully understand, especially in the beginning. And then, just have them break it down to you like you're in middle school or something. Use normal words and tell me what's going on, and just being very specific about okay, what steps have you taken? What steps do you plan to take? When can we know more information or expect to know more information? What should we expect to see? What are we looking for? Things that simple, but just making sure that you're asking all the break it down questions, so that, because when I left, especially it was during COVID, so you only allowed one guest with you.
Right.
When I leave, before we even get out of the parking lot, like what they say, and everybody's asking, what's going on. So you have to have a very clear understanding of what tests they have done, why they did those tests, what tests they're going to do next, why they're doing those tests, and when can we expect results. Because I think that's the one thing everybody can and even with Morgan too, to kind of put us at a little bit of peace, knowing that, okay, there's a reason for step X, Y, and Z, and we can expect to hear back on Tuesday.
Right. That's good. Those break it down questions. And I think people because when you're caught up in emotions and still trying to be there for the people, some of those questions kind of skip your mind, or, so I guess I have a question so how did you stay so calm? I know, for some people, I know some of my people back home, because I live in LA, but my family, majority of my family is in Kentucky. So them staying on edge, and my mom's side of the family is extremely emotional. I get my rational, calm side from my dad's side. So how did you all stay so calm to be able to focus to answer those questions, and to really be there and offer the support and love that she needed?
I knew I didn't have time.
I was going to say, we didn't have a choice.
I didn't have time for it. Well, I cried a couple of times. I never let her see me. And I didn't tell a lot of people. I only told maybe 5, 6, 7 people, but I told them it's not a secret. You are free to tell others. I just didn't want to call everybody and tell them. That would have been too emotional for me. I didn't have time for that. I didn't want to go into that. But I just knew that I had to keep a level head. I had to not, have extreme emotions, sitting up crying all the time and saying, oh, this and that. We had work to do.
Yeah.
I had a job to do, and that was to take care of her, fix her food, to get her medicine, to run to CVS for this, and oh, do this, and try to get her to eat. And I had to make her take a protein shake every day, even when she didn't want to eat. So I just knew what I had to do, and I didn't have time for extreme emotions.
Yeah, and then again, like I mentioned earlier, like kind of my role in the family is to be the calm, the one that doesn't run around crying. So like, I kind of knew I took my role very seriously, and this is one of those times where you got to prove it. And I just, I tried to get everyone, including myself, to focus on the positive things. When they, did I think it was somewhere around the lumpectomy when they downgraded it to stage 1. It's like, okay, they downgraded to stage 1. And then, when you look it up and it's a 97% survival rate if you catch it at stage 1, it's like, okay, so that 97% is pretty good. Like, I'll take that. So,
Right.
okay, let's focus on that. Let's focus on now it's stage 1. And then let's focus on, like, again, I was really strict about what are you doing, why are you doing it, and when are you doing it? So, like, okay, if we have, making up a number here, but we have 6 chemo sessions 2 weeks apart. Once we get through 6, it's like, all right, success. We're that much closer to the finish line. So let's be happy about it, as opposed to being scared about the next thing. The only way out is through. So let's get through.
Yeah,
Oh, I
and
love
Ebony,
that.
I think you bring up a really interesting point. You being in a different location than your family, and so I think that was really fortunate. I was at home, living at home, right, and my mom is retired, right. So those things definitely helped.
I love that. Okay, so I have a word in my head that describes you all's dynamic as a family and support system. But if you could pick one word that describes you guys' dynamic, what would it be?
Can we hear your word?
Strength. Strength. Definitely strength.
Strength.
Like it just keeps ringing like a bell in my head. It's just like, yeah, it's like strong. Like I see you all as like the core of like, and at the core of something, it is usually that's where the foundation is. That's where the strength is. And I'm loving all of this right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, our my word would definitely be resilient. We dealt with a lot in terms of a family. My dad suddenly passed 8 years ago, which tomorrow is going to be the 8th anniversary of his death, right? And so these things are hard. My brother is actually 8 years younger than me. But he oftentimes takes on that big brother role, which I need. Like I want to feel comforted and protected, and he's got me, even though he's younger than me. My mom, a very, very strong Black woman who I, get a lot of my strength from. So I think definitely as a family, we're resilient.
Mine is love. Behind all of it, it's love. We disagree, we argue, sometimes we don't speak to each other, but it's love that keeps us. Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's just us. It's just us. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. We
we
don't have
stay.
a large family, so we got, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And mom, you took it right out of my mouth. Because our last question was, what is love? Love is. When you hear that sentence, how would you finish it? Love is.
Eternal.
Ooh, yes. I love that. I love that.
Unconditional.
Yes.
I would say unconditional, because like she said, we'll get mad at each other, we'll block each other, we're talking to this one, talking to that one about each other, but at the end of the day, we're blood. We love each other, and we'll do anything for one another. And I'm very grateful for that.
Amen. I love that. I love that. I want to thank you all so much for being a part of our show. I know you all were a blessing to me. I cannot wait till this come out so I can tell all my look, go look. This is how you're supposed to support your family. All you brothers better get on it. No.
Yeah, right.
I have to go show that to my son too, so he can get
Yep.
it for your sisters.
Yep.
But it was such a beautiful experience. I thank you all for coming on and being a blessing and sharing your story, because this is not always seen in our community. And they need to see this. We need to see what love and support really is, not what social media always say, but we need to see it from everyday people that look like us, that breathe like us, and not just always when something bad happens,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And it's beautiful to see that, Morgan, you had such a wonderful support team that was there for you, and I can tell it's still there for you non-stop. So I
Yes.
want to thank you all again for being a part of Love and Cancer. This was a beautiful episode. Please, guys, I hope you all join me for our next episode. We have some more amazing guests, some more amazing families and friends that is going to talk about their journey. Until next time, I am Miss Ebony, aka Miss Hustle and Heels, aka Baddie Hustle. And I am signing off for the rest of us. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, Ebony. Bye-bye.